Welcome to Taiwan Report News, brief news and analysis from Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. All right, up on the show, we've got KMT plans to fight the Han recall. Wei Minggu may run to recapture the Changhua County Commissioner seat. I know what you're thinking. Who cares? Bear with me. Chiang Kai-shek lives on Tomb Sweeping Day. GDP predictions are surprisingly rosy, and the Ministry of Health and Welfare knows how to keep us in line. But first up, of course, coronavirus, because none of us can talk about anything else. Now, first, I'd like to call your attention to something quite useful. It's on Focus Taiwan. There's a big yellow link at the top of the page, live, and it says live updates on the coronavirus outbreak. I'm suggesting you take a look at this if you want to follow along. Essentially, it's a live blog, and they add all kinds of little announcements. For example, Taipei Grand Mosque suspends Friday prayers, Cal suspending Taipei. It's basically a feed of all little bits of news, some long, some short. Now, it notes here 2 hours ago, 8 new COVID-19 cases confirmed, which brings the total to 108. So that brings us up into three digits. All right, continuing on in Focus Taiwan, visitors must leave before visas expire amid antivirus fight. Holders of visitor visa or landing visas are required to leave the country before their visa expires, other than in cases of force majeure, as Taiwan intensifies its efforts to combat the new coronavirus, the government announced Wednesday. Visas will not be extended at this extraordinary time, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and clarifying that force majeure refers to large-scale natural disasters or when a foreign national has a serious illness. The coronavirus outbreak in the foreign national's home country is not considered force majeure. However, the Taiwan government will also make exceptions if a foreign national's home country is under lockdown and the individual is unable to return home or there are no available flights. Another exception is if a foreign national is under quarantine in Taiwan. Continuing on in Focus Taiwan, highest travel warning announced for U.S., Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Now, that effectively means pretty much most of the planet is now under level 3 travel warning. So if you are planning to travel, you're going to have to look hard to find a place where you can go. Another article in Focus Taiwan, 16,000 arrivals from Europe, other areas required to be quarantined. About 16,000 people arrived in Taiwan from the high-risk areas of Europe, Turkey, Dubai, and Egypt from March 5th to 14th, and are required to quarantine themselves at home for 14 days. That's a lot of people. The local health departments are going to have a lot of trouble keeping track of 16,000 people. In the Taipei Times, airline bailouts to cost at least $30 billion. The government would spend at least 30 billion NT dollars to bail out the nation's airlines amid the COVID-19 pandemic, Minister of Transportation and Communications Lin Jialong said yesterday. Now, this is on top of a 60 billion a plan that was just passed, and then another 40 billion that they added. So this could bring it all up to 130 billion so far. Continuing in the Taipei Times, presidential office says no need for emergency decree. The presidential office yesterday declined calls from KMT and Taiwan People's Party, TPP, politicians for President Tsai Ing-wen to declare a state of emergency over the COVID-19 situation, saying that any contingencies can be addressed by existing legislation. However, some here have questioned the legislation is appropriate. TPP legislator Jiang Qi-Lu said that the restrictions under Act 7 of the Special Act on COVID-19 Prevention, Relief, and Restoration are questionable and could be infringing on constitutionally guaranteed rights. So Jiang is suggesting that Tsai should just issue an emergency decree to remove all legal doubts. Also in the Taipei Times, legislative yuan teleconferencing system trialed. The Legislative Yuan's ability to hold sessions remotely if the outbreak worsens was tested yesterday as Legislative Speaker Yeo Shi-kwon held a teleconference. While there was some delay in transmission, the video quality was clear. Now, this is very much a sign of the times. Electricity rates to remain unchanged, ministry says. Electricity rates would remain unchanged at 2.6253 NT per kilowatt hour, the Ministry of Economic Affairs said yesterday. The announcement followed a meeting of the ministry's Electricity Price Review Committee. Electricity rates have not been altered since September 2018 and would be maintained for the next 6 months. So, right now, the Taiwan's, under normal circumstances, raising the electricity rates might be a good idea. Taiwan's power rates are quite low by international standards. However, under the current circumstances, with the economy being hit with the Wuhan coronavirus, this would be a bad time economically. Moving on to the KMT official website. Now, they've translated or summarized a UDN article. They talk here about new KMT chairman Johnny Chang issued the first wave of personnel assignments, which will be submitted to the Central Standing Committee for approval. In this wave, there are no vice chairmen. So there will be 5 deputy secretaries general, including Xie Longqie, director of the KMT's Tainan City chapter, and also a Tainan City councilor. And yes, he's the guy who is avoiding jumping into the Taichung Canal, as I reported yesterday. Now, this is what's interesting. It is very interesting that UDN pointed this out and the KMT official website decided to run with it. Ye Shoushan, a confidential secretary to Kaohsiung City Mayor Han Kuo-yu, was appointed director of the KMT Organizational Development Committee. Since both he and Xie Longqie of the canal were hardcore Han supporters, some party members interpreted that Han's influence within the party still could not be underestimated. Now, bear that in mind as we move on to the next page here, also on the KMT official website, again, also sourced from UDN. Facing recall drive against him, Han takes 3 countermeasures. 400,000 second stage co-sponsorships for the recall proposal against Kaohsiung City Mayor Han Kuo-yu have been submitted to the Kaohsiung City Election Committee for vetting. Should the recall proposal against Han be validated after passing the vetting of its co-sponsorships, a recall election is estimated to be held in June. In response to the recall drive against him, Han has taken 3 countermeasures as follows. 1. Stabilize the governance of Kaohsiung City Hall. Han sat in the cabinet's regular weekly meeting in Taipei to seek prevention and control resources against the COVID-19 pandemic, showing his resolve to safeguard Kaohsiung for local people. Stabilize. That suggests that it was not necessarily stable before, but moving on. Number 2, build a firewall. Even though the groups launching the recall drive keep demanding that Chen Xiongwen, a Kaohsiung deputy mayor, recuse himself by resigning as director of the Kaohsiung CEC, Chen has decided to remain in his position. With regard to the second stage co-sponsorships, the Kaohsiung CEC will conduct strict vetting of them in accordance with the law. Should forged endorsements or misrepresentations on endorsement papers be found, the Kaohsiung CEC will refer the suspects to prosecutors for investigation of document forgery. This is significant. Build a firewall, and they're very specifically here stating that the deputy mayor, who obviously is closely tied to Han, is going to keep his position as the head of the director of the Kaohsiung the election committee, in charge of processing the paperwork for the recall proposal, the recall campaign. He's going to be as strict as possible. Flat out saying it right here. So that is definitely a declaration of war there. Number 3, conduct airwave combat. Recently, Han has resumed live streams on social media to explain and clarify the smears against him. To be fair, a lot of the time, they are genuinely just smears. All right, moving along here. This headline this is also from the UDN. This is a local report. And it says here, is Premier Su, or did Premier Su order it? Is this arranging to run for Zhanghua County Commissioner? Wei Minggu, in a flash, resigns the chairmanship of the Taiwan Water Corporation, which is a state-owned corporation. Now, you're thinking, who cares? This is the guy, Wei Minggu, who won in 2016 for the DPP and won Zhanghua. Now, Zhanghua is the largest administrative unit outside of the big six metropolises. So it's fairly populous. If there's going to be another big six metropolis, this would be number 7. Now, what's interesting here is he lost in 2018. Lin Jialong lost in Taichung. Chen Qimai lost in Kaohsiung. But in Taichung and Zhanghua, the incumbents, both of whom actually had fairly high approval ratings, or at least moderate approval ratings, going into the election, they were kind of middling, both of them. They, according to the Commonwealth polls of local government heads, they're kind of medium-low. Both of them got thrown out in the big KMT wave of the local elections in 2018. Now, there's been a lot of talk in Taichung of Lin Jialong running again to reclaim the mayorship. Wei Minggu may be trying to reclaim the Zhanghua County Commissionership. So, why should we care? Well, if the DPP follows this strategy, in 2022, if both of them run against Wang Huimei, the Zhanghua County Commissioner, and Liu Xiuyan in Taichung, and beat both of them, that will be a very big embarrassment for the KMT. If they run Chen Qimai, who lost against Han Kuo-yu in the recall election, which it will be coming up if the recall vote to throw him out in June happens, then once again, this is all potential revenge. This begs a question, though. Is revenge a good motivation? And are these the best candidates? Now, keep in mind that Han Kuo-yu, Liu Xiuyan in Taichung, and Wang Huimei have been and their administrations in the Commonwealth polls, which are generally trusted on local governments and local government heads. Last year, all three of them were ranked in the bottom 4 nationally, which is pretty embarrassing. So all of them are potentially candidates to be thrown out. Han Kuo-yu has the recall campaign, which he may or may not survive. There is a not widely publicized recall campaign against Taichung Mayor Liu Xiuyan, but it hasn't gotten anywhere near as much traction, probably because she isn't exactly as hated as Han Kuo-yu. She's not especially popular, but there's not quite the vitriol that is geared toward or directed at Han Kuo-yu. Now, in the Taipei Times, the article is called Free Tomb Sweeping of Its Political Baggage. Now, this is interesting. I actually didn't know this. The long Qingming Festival weekend is a relatively new invention. Traditionally, the holiday fell on the 3rd day of the 3rd lunar month, and families would arrange a time for tomb sweeping duties prior to that date. This is why there was no sudden rush of crowds descending on cemeteries. After Chiang Kai-shek passed away, the KMT encouraged people to observe Qingming, which is, of course, tomb sweeping, and set a new date for it, changing it from the original lunar calendar date to April 5th, the day of Chiang's death. This is why there is an old and a new tomb sweeping day. The change was intended to commemorate the glorious leader at the same time that people paid respects to their own deceased relatives. The holiday was later combined with a long weekend and came to be associated with large crowds and traffic jams. Qingming also became a part of the KMT's regime's indoctrination of Taiwanese. From the political elite attending public memorials at the mausoleum of the Yellow Emperor in China to the tomb-sweeping custom among ordinary people, the ultimate goal was to foster a connection between an ethnic group and families within that group, to foster ideals of loyalty and filial piety and form an unbreakable hold over racial identity and moral principle. And a few, or two, I should say, GDP forecasts. Now, the Directorate General of Budget, Accounting, and Statistics said that Taiwan's GDP is forecast to grow 2% in 2020 despite the impact of the novel coronavirus disease. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that's the government. Maybe they're being a little too optimistic. So let's jump over to the Taipei Times here. Cathay reduces its GDP forecast to 2%. The same. That's interesting. Cathay Financial Holding Company yesterday cut its forecast for Taiwan's GDP growth to 2% this year from its previous estimate of 2.3% as the pandemic weighs on private consumption and disrupts supply chains across Asia. Quote, the downward revision would be worse had the government not prepared a special relief budget of 60 billion NT dollars to aid affected sectors or announced a grace period for tax payments. And finally, in the silly segment, on the Line Store are now Ministry of Health and Welfare line stickers. That's right. You can get Chen Shizhong looking kind of sad, but raising his hand, and he's there with a little puppy and various cartoon animals out there fighting the coronavirus. And you yourself can get your own line stickers of the Ministry of Health and Welfare and the minister himself. All right. Report.tw is still under construction, but keep an eye out for it because we'll be back soon, and I'm really looking forward to it.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。